First, let's start with the ECOWAS as a regional body. What role does the ECOWAS play or is supposed to play in the affairs of its member countries?
Thank you very much. ECOWAS was established by the Treaty of Lagos. That should be 28th of May, 1975. And that treaty has been revised in July 1993. And as the name implies, it is the economic community of West African states. And in French, you call it CEDAW, and Portuguese also. And it's meant to be a regional political and economic union of 15 countries that collectively has estimated population of about 420 million people. So you expect that should be a huge market, economically speaking. And the principal goal of ECOWAS is to achieve collective self-sufficiency, for member states by creating a single large trade bloc and building full economic and trading union, which will have impact on the political lives of the nations that are there. But going down the lane, from 1975 till date, the big question to ask is that how well has ECOWAS done in delivering on this? And that is one of the excuses given by the nations that are threatening to pull out now. When the coup d'etat took place, it was based on the complaint of economic marginalization and backwardness for the people, that the resources available within the nations do not reflect in the good lives that should be, presented to the citizens. And right now, the ECOWAS community is trying to persuade and at the same time impose sanctions on these countries to return to democratic system of government, and in response to the sanctions, three of them have come together now to say, okay, we are pulling out completely from ECOWAS, and that is sending a future signal that if that is successfully carried out, then the fear is that other nations may start looking in the direction of reintroducing military rule and interventions that is being phased out by ideal democracy. So it appears from the outcomes of the existence of ECOWAS that much has not been delivered to the citizens of the nations that comprise ECOWAS. So, and that you want, okay. Yeah. You were going to ask a question?
All right, Bryce Jide Ologun, good to see you again. It's been a while.
Thank you very much.
Now let's look at the underlying factors here. The military leaders of these countries decided on Sunday to withdraw their membership from the regional bloc, which is ECOWAS. What are the issues fueling this kind of unusual development?
Primarily, the impact of the sanctions on those nations. And, we have issues of perception here now in public relations to talk about perception. Those who plotted a coup and took over to establish military rule over those nations are of the perception that the government hitherto, was not delivering to the citizens what should be. And apart from that, the complaints from some of them is that their former colonialists, kept exploiting them, throwing them into poverty while getting enriched by the resources. You need to go and find out the resources that are available in the Niger Republic, for instance. Those resources should be enough to make Niger maybe the 5th richest country in the world. You see, so these are issues. The same underlying factors that we make those who plan coup to say we are kicking this government out of office: corruption, maladministration, poverty, not delivering on the expectations of leadership. And at a point, ECOWAS was trying to, scream and use force, but the kinetic approach may not help the situation, particularly now that you have three nations forming a bloc. And my argument at the time was that ECOWAS should be proactive in ensuring that we have mechanism within ECOWAS that we make leaders of the different nations develop their countries and deliver the dividends of good governance to their citizens, which now prevents military intervention, at least to a reasonable extent. But in a situation where, as some know, Africa has about 40% of the total resources in the world, and yet accommodates a huge percentage of the poor citizens of the world, then questions will be raised by some. How are these resources engaged? And that is why one of the reasons given by those that brought in the military intervention, and ECOWAS has been trying to persuade them, let's talk, negotiate and things like that. But the effect of the sanction is getting tougher. So the three of them are saying, okay, if we are not likely to get support from this ECOWAS region, let's form our own bloc. And in public relations, particularly the 1978 Mexican statement, is the art and social science of monitoring trends and predicting their consequences. So it's about their consequences. Now, this is going to impact security in Africa, in West Africa. For instance, these countries are close borders to Nigeria, neighboring countries. Before now, under the tenure of the former President Muhammadu Buhari, Niger Republic was like a twin brother to Nigeria. In fact, the president invested so much constructing rail line to Niger Republic. He even said at the time that only God can manage the border of Nigeria and Niger. Now that border is short. They are not doing business with Nigeria. They are not even friends of Nigeria. And so not to start with, the investment of the former president in Niger Republic is locked up now. How strategic that decision was is a different thing. And when this bloc are now reinforcing their relevance within ECOWAS, other nations will be monitoring them, because there are agitations in some West African countries about the level of poverty, about the level of insecurity, about the level of absence of good governance. And that is why ECOWAS should be concerned. And of course, we know that Nigeria is the headquarters of ECOWAS. And that is why this matter should be handled with utmost diligence. And I understand that there was a group from ECOWAS expected to meet in Niamey, but due to logistic issues, they could not fly out of Abuja. And these are part of the issues we are talking about. So it may appear that not much seriousness is given to this issue. And when you talk about military intervention, you know the level of force that may be embraced by military engagement. So we need to prevent the democracy that is being nurtured in West Africa from being encroached upon, because that would be sending a very harsh signal to the protection of democratic tendencies. But on the other side also, the drivers of democracy should be seen to deliver on the mandate of democracy. Democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And let me say this, coming to Nigeria, for instance, and picking it from our grand norm, the Constitution. You look at Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended. It says clearly that the security and the welfare of the citizens shall be the primary purpose of government. So let me now ask you this big question. How many countries within West African region can claim to have secured the citizens and to have provided meaningful welfare to their citizens? And these are questions that are plaguing us.
So these political issues, how do you think is going to affect regional trade or trade within the West African region?
Definitely is impacting it negatively. We've had informal reports of hostility. Within the ECOWAS region, we have the ECOWAS passport, we have treaties that should enable us to move freely, but that is not the case. And so we have not been able to synchronize the efforts of member states. Like I said earlier, there should be 15 states within the ECOWAS region, and the aim is to create collective self-sufficiency. And how do you do that? By creating a single large trade bloc and building a full economic and trading union. So how do you trade with Niger Republic, for instance? How do you trade with Burkina Faso, for instance? So these are issues. Even those that are still under democratic system of government, how fluent is the relationship? We were reading at a time the hostility of Ghana to business concerns of Nigerians there. So West Africa is yet to come together to maximize the benefits of the economic population. And I place that at about 420 million all the time. And the huge resources, the productive potentials, and these are serious issues that should concern us. Africa, and by being specific, West Africa has no business with poverty. I did a research, global one, and it will amaze you that about 40% of the whole resources in the world are domiciled in Africa. And the population of Africa is just about 1.5 billion. And you throw that into the around 8.2 billion of the world population, then you now see the huge potentials in terms of resources that Africa has. So what we lack generally is the resourcefulness to maximize our resources by creating commonwealth for common good. Though some countries in Africa are doing well. You talk about Mauritius, you talk about Botswana, you talk about Rwanda, you talk about Egypt, and some countries like that. So, and these are issues. And in the absence of good governance, in the absence of security and welfare for the citizens, crises are inevitable.
All right, now let's make reference to the treaty that led to the formation of ECOWAS in 1975. Over the years, there have been issues around the credibility of ECOWAS. In fact, there's a clip I'm going to play for you now. I would like you to take a listen where the former head of state, Gowon, talked about these issues in 1975. I would like you to take a listen and then you react to it.
It is also my sincere hope that our deliberations at this meeting will set us firmly on the road to the fulfillment of our commonly held aspirations for greater effective cooperation of the countries of West Africa and a more cohesive and prosperous sub-region as part of and contributing to a progressive and equally prosperous continent. This is a momentous day, marking as it does the fulfillment of many hopes, the result of persistent efforts on the part of leaders from all corners of West Africa, another major and concrete step in giving practical effects to aspirations which we all share and which in various previous meetings, conferences and groups, we have all endeavored since the beginning of the last decade to bring to fruition.
All right, the former president here, the former military head of state here, raised concerns about the collaborations between the bloc. Now, let me read to you the concerns being raised by some of these military leaders. They allege that the bloc has moved away from the ideals of its founding fathers and Pan-Africanism. I would like you to react to this. What's your take to this in respect to the concern raised by the former military head of state and the allegations by these military leaders that ECOWAS has deviated from the ideals of its founding fathers and Pan-Africanism? How do you react to that?
Basic issue there. If you go back to creation, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, God blessed man and he said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth. And so the essence of having the government structure is to replenish, to improve, to enhance the fortunes of the people. And those are the ideals of the founding fathers. All right. And General Gowon, the former military head of state of Nigeria, mentioned it in his speech now. Prosperity, cohesion. So can we claim that that prosperity vision has been achieved in West Africa? So those are the issues. Those are the issues. Can we claim that we are really, truly together by the way we operate? Even bringing it down to the micro space, Nigeria. Nigeria has 6 geopolitical zones. Nigeria had 3 dominant tribes. How coherent, how cohesive have we come together to maximize the huge opportunities available for prosperity? Are we not being torn apart by ethnic sentiments, by religious sentiments? Are we not being plagued by all thieves, cabals who set up themselves against the nation? And these are issues. So when you talk about the ideals of founding fathers, that is why I took it back to the father of all fathers, God himself. When God created so many blessings in the Garden of Eden, it was to bless humanity. So can we claim that the resources in West Africa have been engaged by our leaders to bless the people within the region? I've done some comparative researches. For instance, let's isolate Ghana. Ghana has gold. The UK has coal. And Buckingham Palace is decorated by gold. Is any palace decorated by gold in Ghana? Nigeria has the largest deposit of proven gas in Africa. So how much do we buy gas in Nigeria here? We have oil in abundance that we cannot refine. So these are issues. So when you talk of ideals, ideals mean what should be in place. So have we not deviated from the developmental course of life? Because the sign of life is growth, is development. So can we claim to have developed? 1975, if I roll back now, in 1975, I was in primary school. I entered secondary school in 1977. So these are issues. And look at where we are today in West Africa. So these are issues. So, and that's why I mentioned earlier that the military intervention will come under an excuse. And we are even talking about the local issues now. What about the global issues? Because some of the complaints also is that the former colonialists have been exploiting the region with the collaboration of local leaders. There are several mineral resources in West Africa. Look at Nigeria, for instance. I just mentioned the issue of oil theft. Who are these oil thieves? Why should we export our crude oil for refining in Europe, in other parts of the country, of the world? Bring part of the products home, forfeit the other products to them, and now we are crying foul that $1 exchanges for 1,300 naira in the parallel market. So who do we blame, God or the devil? Because in Nigeria specifically, oil was discovered in commercial quantity in 1956. We became a producer in 1958. The first refinery was commissioned in 1965, built by Shell. We have 4 national refineries that came to comatose recently, to the point that we spend about 100 billion naira for the turnaround maintenance. And we are still in the red ocean of even trying to revive that vital sector of our national life. So these are issues. These are issues in West Africa. So I think we should be sustainable, in our thinking right now. Put Africa of the future on the table. That what can we achieve? I see the United Nations helped us. I think 2015 or 2016, the Sustainable Development Goals were placed on the table. That will be evaluated in 2030, just about 6 years from now. So how much of it have we done? Even though I know a country like Rwanda is keeping pace with the goals. And there is also provision for partnership. So these are issues. So we appear not to have woken up at all in West Africa to the expectations of development. And that's why these three guys are saying, okay, let's see what we can do. But how well also they can deliver as military leaders is a different question. But when I went back to study public relations, we learned something in the classroom that concerning the style of government, let fools argue. So it may be that their leadership style will deliver development to the people. After all, if you go to Singapore, that was translated from a little coastal region with little resources to a place that is like the best place to live and work in the world, one of the best places in the world now by Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew did not practice the ideal democracy way. He combined autocracy with everything, and he told the world, leave me and my people. You see, Sheikh Zayed that developed the UAE from a desert to a modern paradise also did not follow the democratic principles, as espoused in that definition. But this man said that wealth is not money, but developing the people. So how well can we claim that the people in West Africa have been developed to add value to themselves and add value to the society? So these are several issues that we have. That's why I am personally challenging ECOWAS now to go back to the drawing board. The drawing board is still there, and look out of the window and re-strategize towards a secured future. Otherwise, we may be drifting in the direction of a mortgaged future.
All right, in doing that, because the ECOWAS intends to negotiate with these countries, and one of the reasons that the three countries have given for wanting to pull out of the ECOWAS is the way the ECOWAS handled what they refer to as taking their destinies in their own hands with a coup. Is there a different approach ECOWAS could have used? And in going forward by negotiating with these countries, are there issues or are there things the ECOWAS should bring to the table to extend a hand of friendship to these countries in trying to win them back?
Absolutely. We have the kinetic, which is diplomacy. Sit down, negotiate. Conflict is inevitable. Or you get to the table, and in resolving conflicts, there are about 5 steps. I may mention few. Identify what the problem is, which is critical, because if you don't start from there, you only be handling symptoms and not the root causes. What are the problems? What are the threats? Why are you afraid that we cannot continue with this? What new thing are you bringing? How can we understand one another? How do we come to the point of agreement? And how do we prompt resolutions? And how do we keep faith with the resolutions for implementation purpose? The only thing that is constant is change. At a time, the military head of state, General Gowon, retired, that we listened to earlier, said that the problem of Nigeria was not money, but what to do with the money. But look at it today. What is the indebtedness rate of Nigeria? So we need to look ahead. So let all parties sit down. And a wise man said, you first seek to understand before you are understood. So when you come to that negotiation table, you must keep your minds open, and the most important thing is to look out of the window and look at the people. I mean, many watched how the people were rejoicing when the coup took place. That is a non-verbal, a combination of verbal and non-verbal communication. So It's about the people. The resources of the land are there for the people. And some have complained that the global stakeholders are trying to manipulate. If that is the case, who says that West Africa cannot come out and begin to develop their region and maximize their resources? So these are issues. For how long do we play slaves to those who enslaved us earlier? So those are the issues. It's all about negotiation and fulfilling promises and keeping faith with resolutions. And I hope that these new leaders we are talking about are sincere about moving their nation to greater heights. If that is the case, I mean, let's see how we can, and maybe other countries will learn from them, because there are other countries in West Africa too that practice democracy and have little to show for democracy. So in terms of development, and somebody threw a challenge to me recently that, are we even learning from the developed countries? And my answer was quite direct and simple, that if we are learning from developed countries, by now we should have been developed. You see, so these are issues. What are our priorities? Is it about the luxury of office, flamboyance, leadership lifestyle at the expense of developing institutions that we attract wealth? For instance, in public relations, you don't talk about foreign direct investment if you don't have a stable and secure environment, because the investor is in business. He wants to be sure that his investments are secure. So it doesn't matter, you can go around the world soliciting for investment. You won't have it unless and until you secure your environment. These are issues. These are issues. I told you about Singapore. Big brands do business in Singapore because in the doctrine of wealth creation and wealth sustainability, the first thing you do is to create a wealth magnet locally that will attract foreign investment. So you build infrastructure, you build the culture of ease of doing business, you assure those who come to invest that they will reap from their investments. Look at Nigeria, for instance, now. The aviation sector, many foreign airlines have their money trapped within the economy of the nation. How will they be encouraged to come and invest, even when some investors in the country are jetting out of the country? So these are issues that should concern ECOWAS. ECOWAS should drop their garments of honor and status and get down to business. How can West Africa be repositioned? Let me say this. God has blessed West Africa excellently. I just gave us an instance. Do they have cocoa in Switzerland? You start talking about some of the best chocolates, they're from Switzerland. Okay, now we have oil and gas in abundance. We cannot even refine the oil. So the wiser ones who have developed to the secondary level of refining the crude product are the ones benefiting. You see, and that is why it should be difficult to tame the exchange rate that is embarrassing us. So let West Africa wake up. Let Africa wake up. Wake up and maximize your resources. And I stand to be corrected. The resources of West Africa account hugely for what is used to develop the developed countries. And that is why the partitioning of Africa was of interest to them, because of are you talking of human resources? Right now, how many medical doctors are left in West Africa? They are all seeking greener pastures, and those countries are marketing seriously to mock them out of West Africa to come and drive and build their own economies. For how long do we continue with that? And let me say this, if you think you are enjoying the pleasures of office now, one day you'll be out of office. So what kind of society would you have contributed to developing? See, so these are issues. So this a critical moment in history now. But I'm advising they should go to the negotiation table, put the main issues on the table. What are the fundamental crises that we have here now? And not just the symptoms. And you see how you learn from one another, come to an understanding, and you move on. And like I said, West Africa has no business with poverty at all. And again, it's instructive to know that these guys are from the Sahel region, and the import of that when you talk about all this terrorism and then, you understand what I'm saying. So we really need to handle this matter with caution. And under industrial psychology, you have what we call reinforcement theory. So if this is not well handled, we may be reinforcing the reintroduction of military interventions in West Africa, and I doubt if that is the way to go now. And one of the critical solutions to that is to bring good governance and development to the people. When people have a sense of belonging and they enjoy themselves, it should be difficult for some juntas to come from somewhere and say that they want to take over.